Hey guys, I'm Austin, and I'm going to be talking about the season of Game of Thrones that just ended. So if you haven't seen it, click away, because I'm going to be spoiling the hell out of it. So this season started on kind of a weird note to me. It started with Arya impersonating Filch, or Walder Frey, and killing all of his people. And I like that Arya has turned into a badass killer, but this scene seems almost repetitive of what the season 6 finale was. I understand that it's a natural progression, but it seemed like it was almost the same scene, just different characters in a way. It was more akin to the Red Wedding than anything else, but I wish that it just started with her like on her way to Winterfell, and along the way someone tells about this story, and it kind of lets the audience fill in the blanks of, oh, wow, she killed everyone there. It wasn't just Filch and his sons. So I thought that would have been a cool little twist, but instead, I don't know. It just, for some reason, it didn't strike a chord with me, and it just felt a little bit too familiar. Also, the first episode has Ed Sheeran in it. The internet hated that. If they didn't have Ed Sheeran in it, would there be a point to that scene? I feel like that whole scene was created just so they could have an Ed Sheeran cameo, and it just felt so awkward and out of place to me. This season also sees the return of Euron Greyjoy. His character is whatever. He serves the plot, I guess, if he has to. But his whole character, for some reason, he just reminded me. He seemed like Captain Jack Sparrow had a love child with Liev Schreiber from the X-Men Origins Wolverine movie, and that's what they created. Now, after Jon leaves for Dragonstone, we see the reunion of Arya, Sansa, and Bran. Bran this season is real boring. I know that there's theories going around him, and I kind of buy into those theories. If you don't know what they are, just search Bran Game of Thrones theory. I don't want to spoil it in case it is true, because I feel like I could totally see that happening. But his character this season, he was just like, he had no emotional range. Like, he was reunited with his sisters who hadn't seen in years. Or I don't know how the timeline of the show goes, but it makes you think it's been a couple of years at least. And he has like no emotion. He's just like, yes, I saw that you were a faceless man. Like, I don't know. He's just like turned into an emo goth kid almost. Now, Arya and Sansa, I liked their reunion a lot. I actually really liked their storyline. I was worried, though, going about halfway into the season, I was worried that their story was just kind of, you know, I felt like Sansa has been like probably the most developed person throughout the whole show. She's gone through a lot of stuff, and I feel like every time like she progresses as a person, as a character, every time she grows, she takes like a step back, and I was really worried that she was going to do that and she was going to trust Littlefinger here. And then that finale, no one's trusting Littlefinger anymore because he's dead. Jaime and Bronn have some cool moments this season. Jaime and Bronn both should have died multiple times. I like both of those characters. I'm glad they're not dead, kind of, but man, whenever they were facing off against that dragon and Jaime was racing at him and Bronn pushes him out of the way with the fire, like, that should have been Bronn's death. Like, Bronn is also, like Sam, he's a supporting character. He's not a main character himself. I don't think he's going to end up being the hero of the show. I like him, though. But I feel like they should have killed Bronn off there. Like, unless he serves some kind of major role in the final season, I feel like Bronn should have died there. Like, that would have been emotionally impactful. And no real deaths happened this season that anyone cared about. I mean, Littlefinger was the closest one, and I mean, I like him as an actor a lot. He's a great actor, but it's not someone that you are rooting for at all. But Bronn, I feel like it would have been so impactful if he sacrificed himself to save Jaime while Tyrion, who's like his best friend, is watching off from the sunset. It would have been such a great moment, and they didn't go for it. Instead, they both somehow, under all the weight of armor, swim all the way across the little pond that they had there and to safety, and it just seemed kind of like a cop-out. Cersei was, for the most part, useless this season. Like the first episode, maybe the second episode, she tortures and kills some sand snakes. besides that, she doesn't really have any kind of role to play until the finale. Like, she fakes a pregnancy, or maybe she's really pregnant. I feel like she's faking it, though, because I feel like she's putting on a show about it. Like, the way she clutched her stomach when talking to Tyrion in the last thing. Like, Tyrion, I think, believes that she's pregnant, but I think she's faking it in order to try to gain sympathy and sway Jaime and Tyrion to her side. And it worked for Jaime for a while until Jaime finally left in the finale, but now I feel like she's kind of maybe got Tyrion on her side a little bit. Jon and Daenerys have kind of a nice little love story of incest, and it's so weird because I'm kind of rooting on incest here. I mean, they didn't grow up together, you know, they're age appropriate. He doesn't even know, they don't know that they're related. I mean, I feel kind of weird because I'm almost justifying ways like, yeah, I'm okay with him banging. Anyway, in episode 6, Jon, the Hound, Beric, Tormund, Jorah, and Gendry all go past the wall trying to kidnap a White. Stupidest plan ever. I feel like the whole episode was so sloppily put together as far as like the overarching plot. And it's needed in order to get Daenerys out there to save them and have her realize that the undead are a real threat, and also for her to lose a dragon and the Night King to gain a ice dragon that is still spitting fire, I think. It might be ice? I still don't know about that. Anyway, that's another episode where they didn't have the balls to kill someone. Tormund should have died there. Again, it would have been emotionally impactful. Him being pulled into that breaking ice was scary. It was terrifying, but they just pull him out of it. They had a bunch of other like red shirts, just a bunch of other characters that were useless, that basically were just cannon fodder, but they didn't kill anyone. And it's, I mean, every episode this season I was like going into like, okay, they're leading up to the end, they're gonna start killing off these super important characters. And the only really important character all season that died was Littlefinger, and he died 10 minutes before the end of the show. So I feel like Game of Thrones is kind of laid back, but I think they want to go into the finale with all these great characters, so people will want to, you know, see how they all go, because everyone's gonna, for the most part, die, I'm assuming. Like, I think when the show ends, this is my theory, the whole show ends, everyone dies except for Arya and Hot Pie, and it's up to them to procreate and repopulate the world. Anyway, the finale ends with Bran telling Sam and the audience what we all already know. If you're watching the show and you use the internet, you probably already knew that Jon Snow was a Targaryen. I mean, we knew from Gilly's little reveal a couple episodes before the finale that he was, like, actually a Targaryen in name. He wasn't a bastard either. Like, Rhaegar had annulled his marriage and actually married Lyanna, making him a true heir to the throne. But Bran just kind of sums it up for all the people that maybe aren't super crazy invested in the show, but just kind of casually watch it. So I didn't have a problem with that. I feel like that was what they led the whole show up to, though, and that was kind of like the climax of the show a little bit. Like, they were having that over a montage, and then they had the scene where the wall fell, and that's basically, like, that was the whole climax of the whole season, and it was like, yeah, we know. Like, oh, yeah, that's the same thing that they used at the climax of the last season. Like, the last season, they were having a climax, and they had, like, Bran watching, and it cut from, like, the little baby just to straight Jon Snow's face. It was the same reveal. I mean, I'm fine with it, because, like, that information needs to be out there, but at the same time, it's like, they're talking about how they have to tell Jon, and it's like, why? Why tell Jon? What's it going to change this late in the game? You tell Jon, and Jon's going to be like, oh, I'm a king. Well, guess what? He's already on the path to doing that. You know, he's in love making it with Dany at the very moment. And it's like, well, let's see. Dany takes over as queen. Who's she going to name as her king or her husband or whatever? Jon. And Jon doesn't really have a real desire to be a king. He wants to be a leader. He wants to help people. He's like a great moral character. But he's not in it for glory and to rule. Speaking of Jon and Daenerys hooking up, Tyrion has kind of a weird reaction to it. Like, he saw Jon enter her room, and he's kind of, like, moping around there. It almost came across as jealous, but there's been nothing leading up to suggest that Tyrion is, like, in love with Daenerys. I think he is loyal to her, or I thought he was loyal to her. We already have a little bit of a love triangle between Jon, Dany, and Jorah. We don't need it to be, and Tyrion as well, you know? We don't need it to be a love rhombus. But it also made me kind of think, like, is Tyrion now working for Cersei? Like, we never really saw the end of the conversation that they had at King's Landing. Tyrion made a big point earlier in the season about Dany having to figure out what she's going to do, what her heir is going to be, considering she can't have kids. But that same kind of prophecy that they was given to Dany was also given to Cersei, and Cersei's now... I think she's lying, but Cersei's now claiming to be pregnant. And Tyrion has this conversation and finds out that she's pregnant, and maybe Tyrion is going to kind of swap sides, because I feel like Tyrion was such a great character in the first, like, 4 or 5 seasons, but the last season or two, he's just kind of been, like, the advisor to Cersei now. Like, I feel like they kind of just gutted his character, along with Varys. Him and Varys have just kind of taken a backseat to, like, oh, we're going to support Dany now, or Dorne for Varys, and it's just kind of... I feel like his character wasn't really going anywhere, but he was such an integral piece to the puzzle at the beginning, and I feel like the only way for his character to have any kind of satisfying arc is if he does turn bad. Or maybe not bad necessarily, but doesn't really work alongside Dany, or maybe serves as a spy for Cersei. So I think that would be an interesting kind of way to bring his character around. Alright, well, overall, this season moves at kind of a breakneck pace. Like, in the finale alone, Jon starts off with the last episode of The Wall, now he's at King's Landing, then all of a sudden he's at Dragonstone, now he's halfway to going to Winterfell. Like, the way that they move is so fast, and I know Dany has dragons, and she's riding on dragons all the time, but, like, everyone else, like, they just get around, like, super fast. Arya was the only one who seemed to have an episode in order to get to Winterfell. Like, she had to take the whole first episode or 2 in order to get to Winterfell, and everyone else, it's just like, oh, we can just apparate. This whole season was basically just based off the cliff notes of, like, a book that George R.R. Martin hasn't written yet. And I know that's basically what they have to base it off of, but I feel like the writing was a little bit weak. The action was cool in this season. I don't think anything lived up to the action in last season either, though. So I feel like this season overall was a little underwhelming, only because, though, the last season, Season 6 of Game of Thrones, was one of the greatest seasons of television ever made. Like, literally, I thought that that was the perfect season of television. Had a perfect beginning, middle, ending, everything. It had a right amount of fan servicey. I feel like this whole season was a little too fan servicey. I mean, it's still the best thing on TV, but I mean, I feel like it's no longer a Game of Thrones anymore. I feel like now it's a War for Thrones, you know? The game, like all the political intrigue and stuff, has kind of gone away, especially now that Littlefinger's gone. Like, there's going to be way less of manipulation. He was the only one that was doing that, and that's what the whole first 5 seasons were. It was all just politics and people manipulating each other, and now it's just kind of boiled down to black and white. I'm good, she's bad, and he's bad. Overall, this is the penultimate season. It's the second to the last, so I don't feel like I can fairly judge this season as it stands, because so much of it, I think, was just a stepping stone to what next season's going to be. I feel like all of next season's probably just going to be one big finale, pretty much, and I'm okay with that. But this season was a little bit underwhelming, still really good. I'd give this season an 8.5 out of 10. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. If you have any theories of your own, please drop those down in the comments and leave a like. Every little bit helps for a film school dropout.